I was very lucky in the sense that my grandfather wrote down our story. And so the Grand Gypsy, I dubbed him the Grand Gypsy. Not that we are Romany of descent, but because we are travelers of the world. I am the sixth generation circus performer, and my grandfather wrote his memoirs. He started it in 1970 here in Las Vegas. They performed at Circus Circus and a number of casinos here in town as well. And I co-authored it with him. So he finished his book about 1974, 75, and it sat pretty much as an unfulfilled ambition for many, many years until I finally took up the project and decided to make it happen. It's taking me a good while to formulate and make it what it is now, because in addition to writing, obviously, you don't necessarily go into it full-time right away, obviously being a writer, and I don't necessarily think I'm going to be a writer full-time, but I started the process in 1999 of getting his manuscript, which was a book like this, typed pages, pictures glued to the pages. So it starts basically with his experiences performing in Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus in 1932, and what that was like when he was attacked on his opening day in Madison Square Garden by this 25-foot python in front of a sold-out crowd. So that's how the first chapter begins, and then it kind of goes through our family history, if you will. And he recounts his experiences fighting in World War I against the German and the Austrian army while serving in the Italian military, and what tragedy that was, and how many lives were lost. And then he goes back into the circus and travels the world when doing so was not an easy task. This is the 20s and the 30s when he traveled through the Middle East, which was called Mesopotamia at the time, and he was in Aleppo, in Syria, and there's over 170 photographs in the book as well. So it documents this amazing journey. He went to Egypt and was performing in a circus in Egypt in 1926 and went to visit the Sphinx when only the head was uncovered. So the rest of the body was still in the sand. And then he came back a year later and they were excavating the rest of the body, which he took a photograph of as well. So he has quite an experience traveling these far regions. He was in Indonesia and he traveled to Borneo and Sumatra in the late 20s. He was in Singapore where he actually bought the snake, which he named Satana, and traveled with it in another circus. And he, after spending so much time there was, well, let me back up a little bit. So when he went to Borneo and Sumatra, he wasn't necessarily performing for the locals because the locals were not keen, I guess, on going to a circus. It was from the Dutch companies that were hiring the circus and hiring entertainment to come there to entertain the workers. So that's what that was about. And they would pitch the tent on the outskirts of the city, and basically the jungle was right next door. And at that time, there was still cannibalism practiced, so they were warned not to venture into the jungle, otherwise your head would be chopped and shrunk into a ball and they would eat you, basically. So he has lots of crazy stories within the circus and without the circus. So it's kind of like a bit of world history told through the lens of the circus performer. And then he went to India and he spent a good time with India, and he found the opportunity to go witness Mahatma Gandhi deliver a speech in New Delhi in 1931, shortly after he was released from prison. So he had quite a remarkable life, and then went to Czechoslovakia, and then from there they were discovered to come over into the United States with Ringling Brothers Circus. So like I said, that was in 1932, and my family eventually put down roots here in Sarasota, Florida, and then eventually here in Las Vegas when all the casinos started popping up and started hiring entertainment. My cousins performed at the Lido de Paris at the Stardust, and then I eventually performed there years later as a dancer. I've done 25 productions here in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah, and continue on the family trade. I moved away from circus and then got into theater, so that's how I became a dancer. But the circus was ingrained within me, So I eventually found my way back, and now I perform a crossbow act with my wife Naomi, where we perform death-defying crossbow stunts integrated with dance and martial arts. So we met doing a musical in the musical Aida in the Netherlands. So we started integrating all our talents to somewhat tell a story. It's more of a traditional circus performance. Crossbow act is, but the way we do it is more of a contemporary performance. So we try to tell a story within the context of our performance. Also, the targets that we shoot at, and all of that is in the book as well.
Is he still with us?
No, unfortunately, he died in 1978. So he was born in 1896 in the back lot of his father's circus in a gypsy caravan.
Wow.
Oh.
And started performing at a young age and had all kinds of animals. And later on in years in life, we opened up, the family opened up an Italian restaurant in Sarasota, Florida. He kind of was going to get away from show business, but he couldn't get away from it, so he decided to make it into an Italian circus restaurant. So it could be possibly the first dinner theater, if you will, in Florida. And that was in the 50s. And then they continued on with that for a while, and then he decided he wanted to get back into show business. Being in his 60s and 70s, he realized that doing juggling and all the strenuous activity, he was a contortionist as well, and that was going to be too much for him, so he decided to get in with animals. And he had a chimpanzee act, which was very popular, and he appeared twice on the Ed Sullivan Show, and then toured the world again in the 60s and his 70s, and was performing up until his late 70s, and was at Circus Circus. And in fact, there's like I said, there's a lot of photographs in here, but there's one in particular I think you might find interesting of him. He had this great idea with his popular act, which, like I said, it had chimpanzees, and they were dressed as army uniforms, and they would come marching onto the stage with their shoulders, with their rifles on their shoulders. But he decided to change the act up, and we're talking, 1970. He's wanting to do this. The year before, we landed on the moon, right, with the lunar lander. 2001 Odyssey had just come out, and then Planet of the Apes had just come out a couple of years before. So what he decided to do